Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is your United Pod. This is Devil's Advocate. Myself and my co-host, Reese, here, joined by Dale O'Donnell from Stretty News. It's the big one. It's the Manchester derby. So we're here today to talk predominantly all about the Manchester derby. We'll also talk about Scott McTominay. We're also going to talk about Erik Ten Hag's impact as Manchester United manager, as well as other topics. So do guys, smash the like video and hit that subscribe button as well. But first of all, Dale, it's been a while since we chatted. We were actually chatting in pre-season. There was a lot happening around transfers, and there's stuff happening with the Glazers and stuff like that. But season's obviously started. There's been a lot of football actually played between then and since obviously today, since we're speaking. What do you make of our start so far this season, and obviously what's it been like covering United in this time, I suppose, during this rebuild?
Yeah, to touch on what it's like covering United, it's a little different to what it was last season. I sense even within the readers of Stretty News and that there's optimism building. There's a little sense of excitement, new manager, and that's all to be expected. I think what we've seen on the pitch again is to be expected. He came in the first two games which we lost, and after that he quickly changed things. He went more direct, and he kind of was adjusting to the English game, and they're things what we can expect. But I think I'm very encouraged by what he's trying to do with these players. I think that having a system is benefiting some of them, like Jadon Sancho. I think the recruits he's brought in have been really, really good. I know we haven't seen much of McTominay, or not McTominay, of Casemiro, sorry. But when it comes to Martinez, Eriksen, the two of them have already got picked up Player of the Month at the club, in the first 2 months. These new signings are having a massive impact. And I like the players he's brought in all have fire in their belly. So I'm very encouraged by what we've seen. But there will be more bumps along the way, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting start to the season. I think, look, the first two games against Brighton and Brentford were a sense. I remember me and Shaun were discussing it previously. It was like a sense of deja vu, like looking at them two performances compared to the Ralph Rangnick era of Man United. Those kind of they mirrored them performances, but the way I think Ten Hag has adapted in the last kind of month or so, and really kind of brought United back to basics. I think that's something that I think really needs to be looked at and something that needs to be praised considering where we were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Going back to basics, I think that's a very important point, because what you were seeing from Manchester United so far, and especially in the games that we've been winning, the four game win streak, that is not how Ten Hag envisages this side to play down the line. That is not his style of football. That is way more direct than what he likes. And I think by going back to basics, he realizes that he has to build with this team, get them back winning games, then eventually weeding out the players that are causing a bit of a problem. And there is a problem with certain players in the team right now. I don't think David De Gea really suits the way Ten Hag wants to play. And look, he's been a great servant to the club, but I think he can hand out criticism when it's deserved. He hasn't had a great start to the season, and I think if we had a goalkeeper that could play out from the back, it would be a massive benefit to this side. I think it'd be a really big benefit.
Yeah, definitely. Look, that's something actually me and Reece we discussed at length actually at the end of last season that maybe David De Gea would struggle in the Erik Ten Hag side, and even we had lads from an Ajax podcast on. They actually echoed what you said, Dale, in terms of the way Erik Ten Hag wants to play that. David De Gea may actually struggle. I think from that point of view, I think like Ten Hag probably wants to address certain other areas, like such as the spine of the team, like centre half, centre midfield first. Maybe get a forward in. I think like he obviously did that with Anthony. I think that's what he's done first, and maybe like look with De Gea's contract, obviously coming up to an end very soon. Be interesting to see come after the World Cup kind of what happens around his future and how that speculation is there, because like look I've seen like some reports last week that Juventus are looking at him already, and like look it's going to be interesting because at 30 odd years of age, can you teach, like, I know he's not old, but like can you teach someone so experienced new trick at such a stage in their career,
Yeah, there's that element too, but there's also the fact that he's the highest paid goalkeeper in the world. That's a big aspect, and I think that's why some people are coming across a bit narky on this topic, and they're a bit pissed off. David De Gea has been the best goalkeeper in the world a few years ago. There's no one doubting that.
Yeah.
The game has moved on, and I think the fact that he is the highest paid goalkeeper in the world right now, and we're looking at the modern game, and he doesn't fit into it, it doesn't quite make sense. So this talk of extending or triggering a 1 year extension his contract, I think, is a load of crap. It doesn't make sense. It would not be a good decision, and it's quite clear the manager would like a different goalkeeper in the future. So I don't get it. Don't get it from a financial view. I know people could say, "Oh, he'll go on a free," but his wages are absolutely crazy.
They are, so what, 375,000 a week. It's a very big wage, and when you consider, like, what we're trying to do. Like, I know we are trying to trim the wage, but and try to, I suppose, fix to that structure, that wage structure that, quite rightly, we seen when Sanchez came, that wage structure just broke down massively. So look, hopefully, look, if it's a case he can adapt this season, I wouldn't mind him staying, but I have my doubts that he will. But look, he's been a good servant to the club. I have nothing but respect for David De Gea. Like, he's a brilliant, brilliant goalkeeper, and look, great servant. And, like, to be fair, when the going got tough last season, he was one of a few players who actually came out and spoke to the media and didn't hide away and cower away when things were going wrong. So, like, at the end of the day, I have nothing but respect for David De Gea, in that regard. And Reese, just want to come to you, and just on, obviously, unfortunately, your country bet us last week. We won't get into that too much because I know.
I did tell you it would happen. That's
yeah,
all.
yeah, that was the shock. The referee was shocking there, but we won't get into that right now because we end up probably killing each other here in the pod. But Scott McTominay obviously had a good performance against Ireland. To be fair to him, he actually played quite well. He was nasty in midfield, but he did do the basics well in midfield, and it was a very good defensive anchor against us. But being a fellow Scotsman, you look at his form, and you've actually, you've had your doubts about him before previously. And what do you make of, like, his resurgence under Erik Ten Hag, like, this season? Considering, like, many people, including myself, I thought Fred probably would have got more game time instead of McTominay this season, but it's actually been the other way around, and he's actually really been reinvigorated under Erik Ten Hag.
I'm not going to get carried away with it, like you said, fellow Scotsman. I'm not going to carry away purely because it's still early into the season. Like, he's played well. I'll give him that. I expected Fred to play more games as well, but I think from what he has done, he's done the basics right, and it's reflecting his performances. But I'm not going to jump around and go, yeah, we've got a fucking midfield regen. Like, we've got this, we've got that. I'm not gonna. Like, I think there's carried away, and then there's too carried away, and you know what social media is like. It's full of it. But from what he has done, he's played the role really well. He's kept it really simple. I think Christian Eriksen's the big difference for him. Like, he's somebody that understands that deeper role, who is comfortable with him without the ball, who's got that experience, and is just culpable when you need him to be. But McTominay, he's like, for all his strengths of, like, carrying the ball, and he's got a decent pass on him, and he's really good. He's a really good dribbler as well when he needs to be. Like, he is fairly decent dribbling the ball from, like, the short spaces, and then he can build up the ball. I still don't trust him. I still don't trust him to do this long enough. And I think any honest Man United fan's probably the same. They just don't want to. I think there's some people that just don't want to admit it. But I'm not calling them out for that. I'm just saying I don't think many will admit it because he is a youth academy player, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes you have to give him like that. Not all of them are going to make it. Yeah, he's in the starting 11, but if this had been 10 years ago and same age, would he really remain in the same team? I don't think he would, but what he has done, at least right now, is he's listening to instruction. And that's why he's starting games. Like, he's listening to instruction. He's doing what the manager's asked of him, and that's all he can do. If anything, if he wasn't listening, he wouldn't even be near the bench. He'd probably be in the reserves. So I've got nothing but respect for that part, at least.
Dale, do you look at the Christian Eriksen coming in, and obviously him being a very good creative player, and obviously he's kept Man United ticking in these last couple of weeks. Do you think Eriksen coming in has helped simplify McTominay's role in the team and hasn't given him that burden? Because I think we've seen a lot in the last kind of 12 to 18 months, the McTominay-Fred partnership. There was a lot of creative burden on McTominay when that's not his game. Do you look at maybe the introduction of Christian Eriksen probably helping him in that regard and helping him simplify his game?
I think the introduction of Eriksen has helped simplify everyone's game. To be quite honest, I think Manchester United have reason in midfield now, which they didn't have before. I think Paul Scholes touched on it in a previous interview. where he said that, we didn't have a midfielder that was, receiving the ball on a half turn, looking up and looking who's forward. Fred and McTominay don't do that. And we now we don't just have a player that's able to do that. We have one of the best. The frightening thing about Eriksen is he's 30, he had his heart issue and so on. But I look at him as a player that's not finished developing yet. I think he's doing things now that he wasn't doing a few years ago as well. He's just a fantastic player. And it goes back to what I was saying about Ten Hag identifying players for us this summer. People are quite critical of his transfer policy, signing players that he knew, players from the Eredivisie, and that kind of background. His recruits have been really, really good, really, really good. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that, Eriksen being a main one. And just on McTominay as well, I think he does deserve a lot of credit. I know people kind of fearing whether he can do this long term or not, but the one aspect to his game you can see has massively improved is his positional sense, and he's in sync with everything we do this season. Now, I think last season he was caught a lot of times in the wrong position and hiding behind defenders and not being active. Whereas this season, he seems in sync with everything we do. He has a purpose in the team, and that's why he's keeping Fred out and Casemiro. We're forgetting about Casemiro because of Fred. And a few months ago, at the thought of that, you'd laugh. But long may it continue, because I don't look at McTominay that this is his roof. It could be, but I think under the right manager, players can surprise you. You look at that Liverpool team and Andrew Robertson and the likes of them that cost 8 million. With the right coach, they went on to shock people. And I look at McTominay now with Erik Ten Hag. I don't see why that can't happen as well.
I think McTominay's form has been chalk and cheese compared to what it was last season. I think Erik Ten Hag has to be massively credited for that, because you mentioned positional sense. He's getting in the right place at the right time. He's breaking up the play, and what he's doing is he's not taking 1, 2, 3 many touches like he did last season. He gets the ball, he releases it quickly to Eriksen, to Bruno, and gives them the more responsibility to be the creative player. And McTominay's been that enforcer in midfield. And you mentioned it, Dale. If you mentioned 6 months ago to me that McTominay would be keeping Casemiro out of Manchester United's team on merit, I would have laughed and I said, first of all, you taking the piss out of me, it's April Fool's Day. And number two, I'd be that's bonkers. That's absolutely bonkers. But to see how Erik Ten Hag's come in, simplify this game, and just give that instruction he's been giving them, it's great to see the McTominay's developed. And people can talk about long-term future of Scott McTominay. Is he going to be that midfielder that's going to start every week? We don't know. We simply don't know. But one thing he will be, I think he'll be a very useful squad player, that he can play the whole midfield. He can play box to box. And he'll give 110% every single time he puts on the Man United shirt. And I think that's very important.
I think with Ten Hag too, we shouldn't downplay this decision to keep starting McTominay over Casemiro, because it shows, for starters, that he has balls. I think it also shows that he wouldn't be afraid to switch it up if McTominay started to underperform. I think Ten Hag is very clear on what he wants, and it's not like previous managers where I think, let's say, we go back to Louis van Gaal when Rooney was playing but was vastly underperforming, was really, really poor. But he just seemed to play every week. And it was just mind-boggling, really. But I think we have a manager now that doesn't have the same kind of affection that Solskjaer had with the players. He doesn't owe anything to these players. He's coming in, he's trying to do a job. He's an outsider. And I think that might benefit us down the line.
Reese, obviously, look, we've seen McTominay being resurgent, but Diogo Dalot, we were sitting on a podcast about 5 months ago, and we were saying, Laird's coming back. He's probably going to come in and be that challenging arm on Bazaka. We thought, Dalot didn't probably have a future at United. Now you look at his resurgence. He's someone who is a really key figure in United's team. And obviously, look, there's talk abroad now that other clubs are looking at him at the moment. When you see how well he's played in this season, and you've seen how I suppose he's that first choice right back now, and he's probably one of the first names on Ten Hag's team sheet. What do you make of that resurgence of Dalot?
I think it's good for him personally, because it wasn't reflective in performances, and he wasn't taking anything on board in terms of his positioning or just what sort of impact he can have on the team. I think it's the same as McTominay. Really, it's purely just he's just following basic instruction, and he's just got somebody that believes in him. Like I don't think Solskjaer had any bit of confidence in him. I think if Solskjaer was still here, I think Dallo would have been gone ages ago. I don't think he had any interest in keeping him around, purely. But looking at it now, and I agree, he would be one of the first names in the team sheet. Has he got a long-term future at United? Potentially. I think it really does depend on the season. So far, he's done fairly well. I mean, he didn't have the greatest of starts, like pretty much the entire team, bar the odd few. But since then, he's taken on leaps and bounds, and I think that's good for him. It's the same as any other player in the team that you'd think expectation-wise needs to do better. At least he's stepped up, and he hasn't hidden away from the challenge expected of him. Just my only thing is like other players in this team is just consistency and where he goes with it. I think he'll be fine, but so far I've liked what I've seen. I want to see a bit more in his attacking play though. I want to see a bit more. I don't think it's been as even in his own mind critique wise. I don't think even he's been better. Like consistently attacking wise, but he has been better positioning wise. I think if you asked him himself, could you do better in attacking positions and attacking transition? He'd probably say he could, and that's probably a good thing. Like, but all in all, I'm all right with him. I've not much of an issue with him. He's taken. I think that loan to Milan done him a lot more good than anything else because he's improved as a wing back miles better than he did as a full back.
Dale, Jose Mourinho, when we signed Diogo Dalot, said we're getting one of the best young right backs in Europe. And under Jose, he actually did play. He played a couple of games. And he did show kind of in certain couple of games he would be a good young attacking right back. Obviously, between Jose sacking and Solskjaer coming in, there was Young was fancied a bit more, and obviously then Wan-Bissaka came in. When you look at his resurgence, you look what Jose Mourinho said about him. He would be one of the best young right backs in the world. And when we signed him back in 2018, like where do you see like Diogo Dalot's trajectory as a Manchester United player?
I hope he becomes one of the best right backs in the world. But just on what Jose said, he did say that Joel Pereira was one of the best young goalkeepers in the world as well, and that hasn't quite gone to plan. But look, on Dalot, I think this season you could say is the first real time where we have a permanent manager that actually trusts him, that's giving him a run of the team. And until now, we hadn't really seen that, and we always knew he had a bit about him. He was raw. He had a bit about him. And now we're starting to see him get a run of the team, and he's getting a chance. And I think he's taken it. I think fullbacks are absolutely integral to how Ten Hag wants to play. I know I already said that we're not playing how he would prefer, but I think one strong aspect of a performance is that our fullbacks are playing really, really well every week. Malacia and Dalot are doing really, really well, and that's really, really helping us. So I think, look, the longer this can continue, the better. Can he become the best in the world? Look, it's going to be tough for him to get into the Portugal side for the World Cup, but he'll get into the squad. But whether he gets into the starting lineup, it'll be tough. But that competition will do him good too. He's up against some of the best. Look, the sky's the limit. But whether I think he can be a Manchester United right back long term, I have my doubts. I think he'll get his chance this season. But whether he is or not, we do still have to sign a right back next summer. Whether it's back up, whether it's the start or not, because we have no depth in that department whatsoever. Wan-Bissaka, I think if Dalot got injured, I think Ten Hag would look for an alternative way to play a right back rather than play Wan-Bissaka, to be honest.
We've seen he put Malacia right back in the second half of the Sheriff game. So, like, I think that, like, all in all, he's probably already looking at that alternative if Dalot gets injured. In fact, he done that. Like, so, like, Lindelof as well. Yeah, like he played him there as well. So, like, look, there is options, and look, I hope that he can stay fit. I do agree, Dale. I think obviously he doesn't fancy Wan-Bissaka, and Laird's out on loan as well, doing quite well out on loan, but he's out on loan. There's nothing we can do about that. So, like, I think it is a situation with the Dalot that, like, if he can stay fit and stay consistent, that can only benefit us. And, like, just touching on, you mentioned Malacia as well. Like, I'm hoping that Malacia's outbreak, like him getting into the team, that this can help Luke Shaw. Like, we remember seeing how Luke Shaw developed when Alex Telles came in, and I really pushed him on and kept Shaw really came back to form, and we've seen he was an integral part of our team. So like I'm hoping on the left side of our defense that we can see that competition, because I think one thing we've always seen with great United teams down the years is competition made them squads thrive, and players push each other to the limit where they were battling to get into the lineup every week, and it benefited us results wise. So like I'm hoping like if Malacia can continue that form, that when Shaw comes into Europa League games, or obviously with Dale, we were mentioning off camera, there's some weeks there's going to be 3 games in a week. Luke Shaw can come in and do that job, and they can like Malacia and Shaw respectively can push each other, because we've seen that Shaw can play well, and I just hope like look, we've seen he's got injured and he's had kind of downturns in form, but when Luke Shaw is on it, like he's one of the best left backs in the league. Like we've seen that there's evidence there that when he's on it, he is one of the best left backs in the league. But I'm just hoping Malacia's breakthrough can help Luke Shaw.
Yeah, look, I think the thing with Malacia is he's come in. What's encouraged me most is young players come into a very difficult league, and he's just said, "I'm not going to sit here and sit on the bench. I want to play the week." He's come in, he's taken his chance, and I actually think Luke Shaw is a million miles away. As things stand, I really do. I think Malacia has been so impressive. He's tenacious. I think the other thing about his game too, you go back to that Arsenal game. I know a lot of people on social media kind of said that Saka did him a few times. He did. And I thought that was one of the most encouraging games I've seen of Malacia this season, because it was an ongoing battle for 90 minutes. There was moments in the game where he had Saka in his pocket. There was moments in the game where we seen Malacia put under pressure and having to recover. And you're not going to get it every week where he's bossing his winger. In the Premier League, you're going to get some weeks where it's going to be a bit of a battle. And I think what I gathered from that game was so encouraging, that he's able to deal with it. He's able to deal with that heat and deal with the pressure. And I don't think Luke Shaw is. I think Luke Shaw, if you go back to his best time at Manchester United, was when arguably when there was no fans in the stadium, and there was no atmosphere whatsoever. I think that's quite telling, the kind of person he is and the kind of career he's had. I'm not convinced by him at all. I think he will be very lucky to get into the England squad for the World Cup. Blessed, in fact, when you consider someone like Sancho looks like he won't be going to the World Cup.
Reese, do you have us a couple of questions for Dale as well?
I was actually just going to ask on the back of that then. So if you're looking at fullbacks, then where do you see any realistic changes coming in? Because I'm agreeing with you. Like when it comes to Shaw, like Shaw, I watched the Germany game like when he played for England against Germany. He wasn't that great. He only did one or two good things. One forward pass to Sterling, and then a fluky goal, but still a crucial goal at least. But you look at his performance, he was a bit abject. But I will say this though, I think the one thing he's got going for him is he is looking like he's in better physical shape. So he might, if he forces his way in, he might have a chance. But I don't think he will personally. I think Malacia's ahead of him, but it's the right back position that worries me. Because if Dal does get injured, I don't think putting Lindelof out there is a good idea. I'd rather he be a rotated centre back.
Yeah, but the thing with Shaw is you're right. He looks in great shape, and that's encouraging to kind of think that he can offer that competition. I don't think he's a bad second choice left back by any means, and using.
No, I don't either. I don't think he should be. I don't think he should start though.
No, I agree. I definitely the full backs of Manchester United, in the last few years have been dreadful. And with the manager now that plays and the way fullbacks are integral to his football, so we're going to see a difference there. I think Dallow's consistency over recent weeks has been really, really good. Something we haven't had it right back in some time. I think on the left, Malacia has been a breath of fresh air. It really, really has. But it's an area. It's been an area of concern. If you go back to Luke Shaw and just to talk about him for a moment, because with England, and you look at Harry Maguire and the criticism he's been getting in the past week, I actually think Luke Shaw is very, very lucky that he doesn't get the same level of criticism. I don't quite understand why Maguire gets it and Shaw doesn't get any. I'm not saying I agree with the stick that Maguire gets. I don't. But if you go back to last season and a lot of the problems we had defensively, they came down the left. It wasn't just Maguire. It came from Luke Shaw as well.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw often going napping, and that got totally brushed under the carpet. Totally brushed under the carpet, and I hope he feels the pinch, because he should feel sore that someone younger has come in and is really, really impressed, because maybe that will kick him on. And I hope it does, because look, he's a good player, but he's not a starter in my books, not anymore.
The only thing is, though, is how long do you see it lasting? Because we've seen it with Brandon Williams. It lasted 4 weeks. We've seen it with Alex Telles, and it barely lasted. I don't see I just don't see the long-term suit to him. His best period at Man United is probably, if you actually think about it, in 7 years, he's only been good for a combined total of 1 year. The first 6 months,
he did have his injury as well, which
that's what I'm saying. That's 6 months, he was fine, and then he got injured, and then that was it. He was done. And then after that, you didn't see him put a run past the halfway line. You didn't see him put a cross in. He didn't put a challenge. He actually, I think he was. I don't blame him. I think he was afraid to get into a challenge because he was afraid of breaking his leg again. I don't blame that. But then it took him until that half period, the 6 months, 2 seasons ago, where he was actually looking in good form. He went to the Euros, was fairly good, but since then, then it's all drifted. I think a year's probably the best he's actually had in 7 years as a full looking on him. I think a year's probably the best he's actually had. I don't think he's had anything longer than that, sustained.
I think he's a victim as well of, and quite a few United players I think have been in recent years. If you look at some of the coaching and the switching and changing of managers, and managers wanting, especially fullbacks, because under Jose they weren't allowed to cross the halfway line. Your managers asking players to do different things at important parts of their development years, right? Especially Luke Shaw, because he's been a young player throughout these years, and now and now Ten Hag is coming in and he's saying, we want our fullbacks bombing up and down the line and coming in and maybe midfielders and totally changing the way that they're used to playing. And that will take time as well. And he's at a stage of his career where, if this doesn't work out, does he just sit on the bench at Manchester United, or does he move on and try to get first team football at another Premier League club? Because Shaw is definitely capable of doing that. He's definitely capable of doing that.
No, definitely, man.
I think 100% for him. The thing about it is, he's shown at times he can definitely play well for this football club. But as you said, Dale, I think when you look at the way Ten Hag wants to play, fullbacks are integral. And the thing about it is, if he's going to be a part of this team, then he's going to have to push, and he's going to have to try displace a player that's one of the most informed fullbacks in the league at the minute. So it's going to be tough for him. But look, competition does create good problems for the manager. Because if you look at previous squad, especially if you look at Solskjaer, he didn't have much options in certain positions. He had to play the same players every week. So I'm hoping, with this competition now that Ten Hag has, that he has 2 good left backs. He has we have a lot of forward options at the minute. We actually have a lot of options in the middle of the park now in terms of different ways we can play in a game. So I'm hoping with the depth that we have now in the squad that that we can. It can, I suppose, make these players thrive with that competition, because I think we've seen in the last couple of years players kind of rest on their laurels a lot, and they, I suppose, getting rewarded even when they're playing poorly, though being still in the side. So I think we have a manager now, an authoritarian figure in Ten Hag, that won't put up with that. And if a player isn't playing well, he'll take them out. And if they're not training well, they're not playing. If you look at Donny van de Beek, he's probably the biggest example of this. I know he's had the injury, and I think we had this discussion before, Dale. Donny van de Beek's probably the biggest social media mystery. People say, why isn't he playing? Well, look, let's be honest. We're playing a player in Eriksen who went through all he went through, and he's playing 3 games a week, and Donny van de Beek isn't. I think that tells you all you need to know about where he's at and how he's suited to the club. But I'm hoping with all these midfield options that we have now, that we can be better this season, and we do see especially in this October, we've 9 games in 29 days. Hopefully, look, we do see these players really thrive with this now, and these players who, let's be frank, there's a couple of them who are fighting for their United future. We hope now that they can, I suppose, pump their chest out and actually fight for their future, and not pick up that check and sit on the bench every week.
No, absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of players I think in the last few years that we felt kind of, or that we were begrudging because we felt they were just picking up the paycheck and not really putting the effort in. But I think that really hasn't been the case this season. I know we were disappointed with the first two results, and it looked like a bit of deja vu in that, but I'm really encouraged by the bounce back. And there's this massive sense of togetherness about this team right now. I don't think you should downplay the introduction or the impact of Lisandro Martinez because after spending a few weeks with him, now we have Diego Dallo celebrating tackles. It's fucking brilliant. I absolutely love
Yeah,
it.
I love it.
Tackles at Old Trafford are like goals nowadays. It's brilliant. But that sense of togetherness, it's absolutely crucial to building a successful team because you want players that go out like it's an army that will fight for one another and die for one another. And that's the best United teams that we can talk about. All would do that. You look at Roy Keane, you look at Brian Robson, captains that would go out and kill for one another. And it's generally like that. You look at any of the successful teams in the Premier League in recent years, all the teams that were champions all had a bit about them. They wouldn't be pushed around, never be pushed around. You look at us last season against Liverpool and against City, where we just folded and let them walk all over us. We're scared to tackle them. That's not Manchester United. And I think in the first few weeks of this season with Ten Hag, I can definitely resonate with some of it anyway. That we're definitely a bit nastier, and I encourage that. Encourage that massively.
Definitely. And look, I like a team full of shithouses. I really do. I like players who get into people's faces, who can be nasty. So we've had that down the years. They've had that arrogance. I want that back.
I'm going to say something now completely off the cuff. You know how people think McTominay is a future Man United captain? I'm going one further. I think Lisandro Martinez will be Man United captain within 3 years.
Do you think?
Within 3 years, I think Martinez will be our next captain.
Be interesting. He's a character, all right, but I think personally, I think Fernandez is probably going to be our next captain. But we're not going to get into a captaincy.
He probably is. He probably Fernandez probably is our next captain. I've not got a problem with that at all. I just think right now, when you look at it, I don't think he needs the armband. I don't think Martinez needs the armband either. But when you look at it really well, I do think Martinez leads our defence a lot better than he meets the eye, especially. Like Varane's we already know like Varane's a really good centre back. He's proven his fitness at the moment, and that's great. But I look at the positioning in Martinez, and he's kept our defence really key, and he's kept the fullback in line. Doesn't matter if it's Dallo, doesn't matter if it's Malacia, he keeps him in line, and especially his midfield. I actually think he is that defender that will be like. I've said he's the best defender at the club, and I said in our group chat for a laugh, but I stand by it. I think he's the next Jaap Stam. But I look at our team, and I genuinely think he is the next Man United captain. There's just something about him that just screams captain material. He just has that factor you just can't put your finger on. Like, you couldn't put a finger on why Roy Keane was captain, bar his leadership qualities. But you look at, he's an underrated player. Martinez is an underrated player, but he's also one who isn't shy from getting like his word out. I genuinely think that's why I think you would get captain ahead of Fernandez.
It'd be interesting to see what happens with captaincy, but look, like as I said, like if we were to talk captaincy, we'd be here for the night, so we're not going to go down that road.
100%.
We're not going to go down that road. But Dale, I just wanted to quickly before we get our starting 11 and score predictions, I just want to get your thoughts on City start to the season so far and kind of, I suppose, the impact Erling Haaland has made kind of in this short time.
Yeah, it's frightening, isn't it? I think I kind of questioned at the start of the season whether how we'll go because Pep Guardiola hasn't got the greatest track record with number 9s. But Haaland has put that to bed immediately. I think what's really frightening is that they have the players around. It's not just Haaland, is that they have the players around to provide the service to put everything on a plate, more so than Borussia Dortmund could do, and he was damn good there. He has the ability to flick anything on a ball and put it to the back of the net. And the one thing I'll say about this weekend and the whole argument over Lisandro Martinez's height, like it's not an issue if it's going to be a game where the ball is played the deck. It's not going to be an issue then, not at all. But if it's a matter of just them getting the ball into the box and it's a matter of Martinez beside Haaland, then we're in trouble. We need to push City out. But the big aspect as well to City this season is Kevin De Bruyne has almost kind of completely changed his game. Last season, he was City's top goal scorer. this season he's providing assists, and to have a player that can switch to those two roles and do so almost seamlessly is frightening, and we need to keep him quiet. So he's the real kind of he's not the only one in midfield, but he's a massive service to Haaland, and if we can keep that quiet, it would be a massive benefit.
Yeah, like I think Haaland's done very well since he's come in. Like, look, we think we all knew he was going to score goals. I just didn't know to what degree. Like, he's scoring like more or less in every game, and like he's kind of, I suppose, killed all doubters that he wouldn't adapt to the Premier League. There's a lot of Pool fans saying that Joe Nunez is going to outscore him. I don't know what the fuck they were smoking, but that's not going to happen. But like, I'm looking at him. It's frightening. I think City could actually win the league at a canter. With him up top, like he's a freak of nature. Yeah, like the City are just a well-oiled machine at the moment, and like I hate to say it because I absolutely despise him, but like the way Pep has him playing, the way like look he rotates, like he can like rotate so many players in the starting 11, and they play the same way as they would the previous week. I think that's something that you have to tip your cap to him, like in that respect. Pep has him playing like that, and he's really disciplined, and I like what Pep does as a manager, but again, I wish he just wasn't at that football club. Do you know what I mean? In that regard, but we will actually predict our 11s first Sunday, and then we'll give our score predictions. We'll wrap it up there, guys. Reese, I'll go to you first. Give me your starting 11 for Sunday. What do you think Erik Ten Hag's going to do?
10 towers and a tank in front. I'm not sure. I think
Santi Martinez and 10 planks of wood, is it?
No, 10 tanks. Literally just 10 pillars and just one tank. I don't know. I think De Gea, Dalot, Varane, Martinez. I don't know if he's going to put Shaun in there, but he did have a decent game against Germany. He might, but I'll still go Malacia. I think that's the right choice. Even though he did get suspended and he missed the Ukraine game, I think McTominay misses out. I think Casemiro, Eriksen, Antony, Bruno Fernandes, Sancho. I think he probably will do Ronaldo up front, so it's probably that. Although I think dropping a few players right now ain't fair. Like McTominay right now, he's in really good form. Like I don't think dropping him is fair, but I think right now in a game like this, we're kind of against probably the second best team in Europe, best team in English football. It's probably wiser to go with Casemiro for his experience in big games. It's probably better to use him than use McTominay off the bench where he's got the legs. He's got the legs compared to Casemiro, but then again, Casemiro's got far better experience. So yeah, that's what I would go with. De Gea, Dalot, Varane, Martinez, Malacia, Casemiro, Eriksen, Antony, Bruno, Sancho, Ronaldo.
Dale, do you have anything different to a Reese 11? What do you think? How do you think Ten Hag might approach it?
I'm definitely going with Casemiro with McTominay midfield. Him instead of Casemiro. Up front, I'm hoping Rashford or Martial are fit.
Yeah, I hope so as well.
I'm going to say Rashford will start because based on form, I think should go with him and have Martial ready for the bench. But this part of me doesn't really want Ronaldo starting.
If they're fit, I would rather Ronaldo be on the bench and use him off as an impact. But if they aren't available, then we've got no other choice.
As a plan B, I have no problem with that in a game like this.
Yeah,
I kind of fear about it in the kind of way City are going to press us. Having a body like Ronaldo on the pitch. And it's not just criticizing him, but he's 37. No context.
It's one of them. I think these type of games, I think we know what Ronaldo's role is limited now at this point, and I think maybe even now he probably accepts he's probably not going to play all these big games, and that's just the way it is. I'll quickly just give my 11 just before we wrap up there. I'm just going to go De Gea, Dalot, Varane, Martinez, Malacia. I'm going to go both Casemiro and McTominay in midfield. I think we should play both of them. I think solely for the fact that I think both of them would have as organised midfield. It helped deal with with City's midfield threat. I think it could help break up the play and disrupt Kevin De Bruyne and Silva in there. I go Eriksen number 10, and I go Anthony off the right. If Martial and Rashford are fit, I'd go with the two of them with Anthony up top if they're both fit, by the way. But if not, I go Rashford through the middle and I go Jadon Sancho off the left. If Martial isn't fully ready, I go Rashford and then Jadon Sancho. Sancho did actually play well against City last season. He did score, so look, he's something to prove there as well, and not getting into the England squad as well. So hopefully, he has his tail up in that regard. But just quickly, just around the whole table, just before we finish, and quick score prediction for Sunday's game. Reese, I'll go to you first. What's the score prediction?
I hope we win, but just the way that they're playing right now, I mean, we're in good form ourselves. Funnily enough, I seen a stat the other day. It's absolutely brilliant. 164. Funnily enough, it was actually Steve in our group chat. 164 league derbies, 454 goals scored. The goal difference is 0. I think that's hilarious. But I actually think it's going to stay that way. I'm actually going for a 2-2 draw. I think we'll get. I don't think we'll lose this game, but it's just the quality of this City team at the minute. Like it's hard to predict. We've already beaten Liverpool. We've beaten Arsenal. I just don't know if we're beat City yet. They're still too far ahead of us. I'll take a draw. If anything, that's a good result for us. So, 2-2. I hope we win.
Dale, do you have any hope for Manchester United this weekend?
I hope. I don't think it's going to be the same as last season where we got absolutely battered. I think we can go into this game and definitely fight for a result. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but I do think that we could surprise a few. This not just on Sunday. We could surprise a few this season, I think.
Both lads have gone with score draws. Reese 2-2, Dale 1-1. I'm going to be ultra positive. I'm going to go 2-1 United. And I didn't put Bruno in my lineup. The sole reason I think off the bench when the game's a bit more open, I think he could be a key factor. I think Bruno off the bench could be someone who could ruffle a few Man City feathers off the bench. But I'll go 2-1 just on the basis of that. I think United should win. We actually have a really good record at the Etihad in the last couple of years, barring last season. And we've done really well at the Etihad, so hopefully we can keep that up. But on that note, we will wrap it up. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening today and who are listening on the replay later on. And also, don't forget to check out Dale's podcast, Stretty Cast, and also Stretty News. Well, we do deliver all the latest Manchester United news there as well. And Reese's podcast will be coming up later this weekend as well at some stage. But thanks very much, everyone, for watching. I hope you all have a good weekend. And most importantly, let's hope Manchester United go out there and do us proud on Sunday. But until then, guys, thanks very much, and we'll see you later.